Sherri. And I was thinking about this because Roseanne was always just right here. And then, no, sister. Yes. So scoot over here, Carol, so we can have our lovely background. And then,
Do you want to be in front?
and while we talk to David, I want to advance. I want to just be. Don't let anybody else in.
Let Annie in. But Vance isn't here.
Okay. Morning. You're on mute, or I can't hear you, one or the other.
I think I was on mute.
Yep, there you go, there you go.
Ugh.
Okay. And we have Sherri going first, okay, and she's on. Sharon Conway. Sherri, is that your name, really? Did we let her in yet?
I'm coming.
Okay.
And then I was watching for the person that's ready for PowerPoint.
Okay, morning.
Hi, good morning, guys. Sorry, I was getting water and coffee, all the liquids. Can you hear me okay?
So is your real name Sharon?
Yes, is that what it says?
Yes.
Oh, when you log, yeah. I forget that. That's what my driver's license tells me. Only my mother, when she was very angry, would she call me that. So.
Is Nicole jumping on, Sherri?
Yeah, she's going to be driving the PowerPoint just so that I don't get off track and blow your timeline. She keeps me. So she should be logging on any minute. I talked to her last night. So, and she has the link and she has the PowerPoint. So hopefully she gets on a little bit before you start. Oh, there she is. Okay, I'm gonna let her know.
And Wendy, I had that right, that I'll do the intro and then Vance will come in and then I'll do the intro of the speakers.
Yes.
And is there anything that you're aware of in the other matters?
No, I think that, depending on where we are with time, I might announce splash. But I think somebody else might have another, but that's all I'm aware of. Morning,
Okay.
Jeff.
Good morning.
Great day to be at the Galleria.
It is. It is a Friday and I don't work this weekend, so I'm happy. Hey, do I have the ability to show up PowerPoint on this at some point? I just take
Yes.
over? Yeah. Cool.
Just share your screen, Jeff.
Awesome.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hey, Vance.
Pull this on. How come there's two David Attaways? What's up with that, David? Did you clone yourself?
No, I've got two iPads running so I can try to monitor and cut and mute myself without poking people in the eye.
Okay, so you guys good if we start letting people in now? Vance, do you have anything you need to say?
Yeah, I've just got a short shout out to Laura.
Okay, it's
All right. Where do you go Saturday?
That Annie?
By the way.
Annie, thank you, Annie.
mute.
Mute.
Different formats. That's for class.
Okay, so we'll start letting people in. Vance, probably watch to make sure Laura's on when you start your comments. Okay,
And if she's not, then we can punt me to the end of the meeting if you want,
wait till the end.
if she's not
Any
on.
other matters?
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
Good morning.
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 Good morning, everybody. We are just letting everybody in and getting ready to go. And then we're gonna, David is gonna kick it off and start our fabulous meeting this morning. If you are not already, if you could just make sure you're muted. So we'll get started in just a couple minutes. We're just letting everybody jump into the meeting and get ready to go. So we're going to get started, David, if you want to do a call to order, and we'll get going, because we want to make sure that we stay on time and really value everybody's time for being here. So thank you guys so much for joining us this morning, and I'm going to turn it over to David Attaway.
Good morning, and just again, thanking everybody, especially our elected officials who have taken time to join us this morning at the Roseville Economic Development and Governmental Affairs Committee meeting. I'm David Attaway. I'm the CEO of Placer Valley Tourism and At the Grounds, and lucky to serve as your chair of this committee for the chamber. Today is very important. Those of you who watch the calendar, it's July 23rd, and it is National Vanilla Ice Cream Day, as well as Gorgeous Grandmother's Day. So those of you who have been marking your calendars and waiting for those, that's what's going on today. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to someone probably all of us know is Sherri Conway. And she has over 30 years of experience serving municipalities in the roles of Economic Development Director, Community Development Director, Planning Director, as the Director of the Placer County Office of Economic Development. Conway's primary responsibility is to provide vision and leadership in planning, growing, and managing economic development programs and projects. She's responsible for overseeing the county's business retention, expansion, and attraction efforts, the Placer Business Resource Center, the Placer County Economic Development Board, the Placer County Visitors Bureau, and the Placer Lake Tahoe Film Office. In 2018, Conway launched the Placer Business Resource Center, a countywide one-stop facility to serve the business community by offering 4 primary areas of free service: workshops, one-on-one business advising, hiring assistance, which in these days her phone should be ringing off the hook, and regulatory navigation. Conway holds a Master of Science in Resource Management and Public Administration from Antioch University in Ohio, and a bachelor's degree in environmental science from the State University of New York. She received certification from the American Institute of Certified Planners in 1998, and she currently serves on the board of directors for the Golden Sierra Regional Workforce Investment Board and the board of directors for the Northern California World Trade Center, as well as sits on the Economic Development Director Task Force of the Greater Sacramento Economic Development Council. I know she's really excited about the Sunset Area Plan, as well as a few projects that are happening currently in Lake Tahoe. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Sherri. Plus, she's also been a great lead in our ability to move forward during COVID. So thank you.
So before we get to Sherri, because I need to take a breath after that fabulous introduction, I would like to call on Vance Jones, who is a VP for Government Affairs and Economic Development for the Chamber, for an announcement. Vance, and you're on mute.
Thank you for that, Wendy. Yes, I always forget to take myself off mute. Hey, thanks for the quick jump in here. I actually wanted to jump in before we got our meeting going and just give a quick shout out to Laura Mattioli. Laura, good to see your face. This might be the last time I'm seeing it for a while. But for those of you who don't know Laura, Laura is the City of Roseville's Economic Development Director. And she announced recently that she's going to be retiring on August 5th. So Laura, you've got just less than 2 weeks before you've got the promised land ahead of you. But I can't believe I'm here saying goodbye to you, Laura. But just by way of background, you know, Laura's been with the city for over 25 years. And in that time with the City of Roseville, she's worn many, many hats, starting in the planning department, ultimately working for the community development department, and then also now working in economic development and now assuming the lead role as their director. I met Laura personally back in 2002 when I first joined the City of Roseville's planning department. And our roles overlapped because we both shared the arduous task of going through all of the city's development agreements and making sure that both the city and the various developers were in compliance with the terms of the agreement and putting together all of these matrices. I'm sure I speak for you, Laura, too, when we were both glad that we could put that task behind us and let other folks assume that role. But Laura, I must say that we here in the business community, now that I'm in the private sector and working alongside you on the other side of the counter, we just appreciate you. We really value your involvement with the business community, just being so proactive and just being a voice for the business community and just doing everything that you can do to make sure that the businesses here in Roseville and the surrounding communities really do thrive. And we just value you and the attitude you bring. I think it's truly an example of the attitude that the City of Roseville has with the public-private partnerships that they form. So I won't drone on and on. I try not to embarrass you, but we truly wish you the very best. I mean, you've got just a couple weeks left. I hope you've got big, big plans, but we are going to miss you. So anyway, Laura, thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you
Yes.
all.
Let me just echo that. Laura's been tremendous and helping all of us develop the community. So we will miss her greatly, but we know she'll be around and helping in other projects now.
Absolutely.
And Wendy, I'm sorry, I didn't read the hand signals correctly, and I had one job this morning and I goofed it up already. So I apologize for that. So Sherri, again, I apologize for the disconnect of your introduction, but I know you've got a great presentation for us. And I'm also happy to work with you in terms of sitting on the board of the economic development for the county. So Sherri?
Well, David, that was a marvelous introduction, and I would never, ever be put off by having Laura take center stage. I just want to say, I can't imagine me going to work on August 6th and knowing that Laura is moving on into a different opportunity, because COVID was hard for us all, but there were times and evenings when Laura and I would text each other going, oh my goodness, like, what are we doing? It was hard. And I can't even imagine having gotten through the last 12 months without her. So kudos to you, my friend. I'm wishing you all the best in your next adventure. But yeah, I will do my best to just give you an overview of what we're doing up at Placer County Economic Development. And if Nicole of my team can put up the PowerPoint, because I am grossly inept at talking and there you go, sharing. Thank you, darling. Yeah, next slide, if you would. So what do we do, or what should we do? And I think, prior to my installation about 6 years ago into this role, I'm not really sure what the county's Office of Economic Development did, but one of the first questions I had when I was hired was, where's the data? Because I don't see any data. I see a lot of regional information, and that's wonderful, but we're growing and we're changing. And, while we are part of the Sacramento MSA, I was curious about who we were individually as a county, and then within our county by sub-region. We're a giant county. And so the data didn't exist. And I took it upon, one of our biggest priorities was to go and establish that data. So we partnered with Beacon Economics and EDD and generated employment profile reports specific to each of what we call our 3 subregions of the county: the Valley, South Placer, the Foothills, and East Placer, which is Tahoe. And we were able to publish these 3 reports, and we've now updated them for 2020 data. They're all on our website, so it won't bore you. But so why is data important? Well, data should drive the policies of our Board of Supervisors. Hi, Supervisor Jones, Jim Holmes. And policy should provide some kind of, based on data, policy then can be more thoughtfully developed. So employment data as of 2020, no big surprise. This is countywide data. I didn't bring forward the subregions data. Healthcare drives our economy overall, and that's just a function of the baby boomer curve, right? But what was interesting to me as I dove into the data a little bit more as it relates to employment was that healthcare, while on the surface sounds really wonderful, doctors and nurses and anesthesiologists and good solid paying jobs with highly skilled professionals, what it actually also suggests is that, and you've heard me say this before, the Valley, South Placer, Roseville, Rockland in particular, have a high preponderance of assisted living facilities, right? And we have that largely due to our demographic. We have folks here who have the ability to afford that type of care as they age. Well, that presents a different type of challenge, because the folks that are employed at our assisted living facilities don't have those higher skill sets, don't earn those higher wages, primarily cannot afford to live in our county. So this begins to, as you peel the onion layers off, you start to look into, well, if they don't live here, where do they live and how are they getting to work? And is there public transportation available to get them to their job on time? So data matters, I think, is what I'm suggesting to you. Nicole can put in the chat a link to all of these reports on our website if you're interested to dive a little deeper. I'm a data geek, and so that's all I'll say about employment data. Next slide, please. There you go. And so on the one hand, employment data is really important and very telling, but oftentimes GDP, gross domestic product data, doesn't line up consistently with employment data. And so it's important to kind of look at data from a number of different angles. You'll see here that the largest piece of this pie is real estate rental and leasing, right? In terms of the overall impact to our economy. We're very strong in this industry sector, but by contrast, that sector doesn't really account for the largest number of employees, right? So it's important to always look at data from a number of different angles so that we can really better understand who we are, what are our strengths, and where can we build on those strengths for business attraction and retention expansion opportunities. So next slide, Nicole, if you will. So as David mentioned, and I'll give David a tremendous amount of credit, as well as Scott Albert, who is chair of the Economic Development Board. When we began to scratch the itch of a non-existent business retention expansion program back in 2019, we recognized that many of the cities, but no one does it as well as Roseville, but many of the cities had different business retention expansion efforts. Some of the cities had never done anything, not even a business walk. And we felt it important to use our data to really launch a BRE program countywide. But we could not have done that without reaching out to the Economic Development Board, who's comprised of representatives from each of the cities and industry representatives. I know Jeff is on this call. Jeff Richardson represents one of our seats. So really engaging each of the partners. And I want to give a huge shout out to Roseville. Roseville, of course, is host to the majority of our establishments in the county. We could not have even gotten this far without recognizing this partnership, the willingness of the Economic Development Board to sponsor this. And this sets the stage for many, many years to come as we dive further into this data. So next slide, please, Nicole. So we formulated a strategy and then COVID hit, right? So we backburnered the implementation of the program, but we still began to think about how would we go about attacking this monster. We're a giant county. We have over 16,000 businesses. We certainly couldn't, particularly during COVID, go and visit 16,000 different business owners. But we found that as a six-pronged strategy roadmap would serve us best. So we've gotten through the first 5 of those, and we intend to go back to the Economic Development Board at their September meeting, asking them to direct staff to provide program and procedure guidelines for an ongoing BRE program long into the future. Next slide, please. So some of the initial data, and we did a initial pass because of COVID. We again backed off from scheduling the one-on-ones, and we elected to do an electronic survey. Many of you may have gotten it. The survey was interesting. It was sent out to over 6,500 targeted businesses within the 10 identified sectors. And we knew which sectors to go after because of the data. So the initial response was about 12%, which is not terrible, given what we know about electronic surveys. Interesting to me, the top 3 reasons folks noted: safety of community. This is why they're here. This is why they're electing to be here. Market opportunity and community pride. This is fascinating to me. There are communities throughout our region, throughout the state, probably throughout the country, that you probably wouldn't have seen community pride in the top 3 reasons that our businesses are here. That's really cool. You can see some of the other stats. 73% are very small businesses. The majority of them are locally owned and operated. What the data did tell us, and I believe we've shared all the raw data with Wendy and Laura, and so each of the cities in the chambers now have the raw data. This is sort of an aggregation, but the survey results indicated that the vast majority of respondees employed fewer than 20 folks, right? Which is great, except that it suggests we missed the mid to large employers. Next slides, please. A little bit more look as we dove into the responses of those that did. You can kind of see the breakdown for the Valley. Roseville rocked it once again, close second by Lincoln and Rockland. Hopper did very well. And then on to the unincorporated area, the foothills and Tahoe. So we wanted to make sure that we were reaching all parts of our community. Next slide, Nicole. This is a little busy. I apologize, especially on my little laptop. But we wanted to also piece out the answers by region, and they were very consistent across the board. This was a question of asking what industry sector do you think you belong in? And we know for sure things can be perceived to belong in multiple buckets. So we wanted to ask the question, what sector, and these are NAICS code sectors, what sector do you feel as a business owner you belong in? And so leisure and hospitality, big, 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 retail, big, big, big. Next slide, please. Oh, we're all done with data. Let me just hold off here. So based on what we saw the results of the initial survey to be, we are now engaging the Economic Development Board, which now has 20 members, to assist staff in identifying those mid to very, very large employers within the 10 sectors. And we will spend the next 6 months scheduling those meetings. If those employers are in each of the cities, we will engage staff of each of those cities. The electeds, Bill Halden's on this call. He sits on the board as well, so that it's really an opportunity for the board to interact with our important employers. And when I say important, maybe they're the largest sales tax generators in the community, maybe they're the largest employer in the community. We want their feedback. We want to sit down with them, go through the survey and get that feedback. And the whole point of a BRE program is to understand the challenges that our businesses that are here on the ground are faced with. And if there is opportunity at a policy level, whether it's the county board of supervisors or any of our city councils, to address some of those challenges, that's the goal, is to provide the support, because we are not in a position to have a strong business attraction program if you don't have a strong business retention program. So that's all I'll say about BRE. We can talk about that if you have questions at the end. And then quickly, David pointed to the Business Resource Center. This grew out of my observation that it's difficult for businesses to get a start here in the county, that sometimes they're, they go from counter, front counter, public counter to public counter, whether it's in the unincorporated area of the city. They don't often have a good idea of what they're doing. They have a great idea of what they want to do as far as launching a business. I want to make donuts. Everybody tells me I make great donuts. I saw this vacant storefront on Main Street. I leased that vacant storefront on Main Street. I'm going to go start making donuts. And a year later, I'm out of business, right? And so such is the plight of the small business owner. So the idea behind the BRC was to provide lots of tools at no cost to folks that are starting out, as well as our employers that are trying to scale, but for whatever reason, or maybe they're having a difficulty accessing the capital that they need, or finding a site, a location that would support their expansion needs. And so the BRC launched in 2018. Next slide, please. I think we have some stats, right, Nicole? And by the way, her screen's up. She's my rock star. She runs the Business Resource Center. So everybody give her some kudos. Here's some stats. In spite of COVID, we've hosted close to 2,300 people, over 180 workshops during this period. We've provided almost 5,000 hours of one-on-one business advising. Lots of clients come to us just trying to understand, what kind of permits? Do they need a business license? Do they need a building permit? These are questions that, for those of us that work for government, maybe are easily answered, but when you're never if you've never had to get a permit, it can be very kind of overwhelming. And then in partnership with the Business Advantage Network, and I see Ellen on the call today, we've hosted almost 60 hiring events looking to provide job opportunities for folks looking. So why do we do this, right? Why do we offer all of these programs? Well, the results are here. We've created almost 200 new jobs. 30 brand new businesses have opened in our community. 43 businesses were acquired, and 16 million capital infused into our county. So that's why we do it. We want to cultivate entrepreneurs here. We want to make sure that our businesses on the ground can grow and grow and grow. Next slide, Nicole. I'm trying to be quick, David. Oh my goodness. We have more BRC stuff only because during the pandemic, I want to give a great shout out to my team. You know, we went from hosting these workshops and trainings to providing daily 10, 12, even more hours a day of support to businesses who are trying to understand what they could do, what they couldn't do, could they be open, should they be, doing to comply. And my team rocked it. In spite of the pandemic, we were able to launch an online business creator series. That was a first for us. And Nicole can tell you that was hugely successful. And it was a little bit of an experiment. We weren't sure if people would register. Obviously they did. We weren't even sure if people would graduate. 44 of those that began the class have launched a business right here in Placer County. So that is really cool. Next slide, Nicole. So business attraction, again, if we can build on our efforts in business retention and expansion, then we're really well positioned to have a strategic business attraction strategy. And we can do that now because we have the data. We have the data that tells us who we are, who our talent is, where our labor force sits. And so when employers are looking to come here, and I know that Wayne and Laura and I and all of us, we look at these RFIs every week, every day that come out of the state and out of GSAC. And we know exactly what businesses that are interested in landing in California or in Placer County, what they're looking for, and they need workforce. So we're trying to make sure that we are understanding the data, especially in this post-COVID era, so we can be responsive to business attraction opportunities. Next slide, please. We also oversee the Placer County, well, it's the Placer Lake Tahoe Film Office. I want to make sure I give it the right name. And why do we do this? This program sits under the Office of Economic Development because, as many of you know, when a production comes here, it generates positive economic impact. Production crews stay and they spend money in the community on gas and food. Lodging, for sure, lodging generates TOT. The whole production generates sales tax. They rent cars, they rent equipment. So productions in the county continue to grow in spite of that industry sector being more or less shut down last year. Next slide, please. I wanted to give an example. Subaru was here, I think in March or April, and that's not unusual. We are host to tons of car and truck commercials. That's our bread and butter. This one commercial shot was here for just 2 days. They shot at 2 locations. That top location, that's the tunnel chute down off of Mosquito Ridge Road in Forest Hill. And the other location was up near Squaw Alpine. They needed these 2 different locations. We were able to accommodate them. They stayed in the unincorporated area of the county. And this is just a little snapshot of what this one very short 2-day production generated in terms of economic revenue for the county. So I encourage all of you as the cities to continue to work with Julie of my team as we kind of revamp our strategy to productions here. And we want to make it as easy and seamless as possible for productions to film here in the county throughout each of our cities and all the way up to the eastern part of the county. Next slide, Nicole. And then just a wrap up. I'm working with Sierra College as well as the Workforce Board and a number of other stakeholders right now to bring forward what will be the first ever countywide workforce development strategy. We're partnering with the Centers for Excellence. I don't know if any of you know Aaron Walsh. They just prepared a similar strategy for Nevada County. There's never been a more timely and urgent critical opportunity to have a workforce strategy. Both this acute situation that we're in right now, where literally no employers can get the bodies that they need, and a longer term strategy, which is really partnering with our training institutions, vocational schools, community colleges, as well as our 4-year schools to make sure that our employers have a pipeline to the talent that they need moving into the future and out of this COVID fog. So we're excited about that. Many of you on this call will be part of that development of this strategy because, again, as a county, we're diverse. We have multiple sub-economies. What Tahoe needs is very different than what Roseville needs. So we need to pay attention to our industry sectors in each of the geographic areas of the county to make sure we're feeding a pipeline of the talent and the skilled labor that they need into the future. And I think that's it. Is that the end, Nicole?
It is. That is the
It
last
is.
slide. Yes.
Again, so I'm happy to answer any questions. Many of you on this call I work with very, very often. Laura and Wayne, I don't know what I would do without both of you. And I just want to end by saying we need to be one. You know, this county has, you know, this unbelievable opportunity. We are now in the region. We're setting the bar, and the bar is really high. And I just want to acknowledge that if it weren't for the collaboration and cooperation of all of the chambers in the cities, we wouldn't be at the front of the game. And there are communities, including many within the greater Sacramento region, that are looking to us right now. You know, we're setting the gold standard, and we really have to be proud of that. And I'm excited to be a part of it. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys today.
Are there any questions? And while we wait for that, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't recognize Sherri, Dr. Jackson's contributions to the retention piece, as well as Paul Griffin's, I mean, and your entire staff, because Dr. Jackson was extremely involved in that.
Thank you, David. I have to acknowledge that even though the Economic Development Board is sponsoring the business retention program, they only meet quarterly. So we've relied heavily on Dr. Jackson and David Attaway to provide us the more intermittent guidance. And you're absolutely correct, is we wouldn't have gotten this far were it not for both you. And Dr. Jackson is important because, speaking of workforce, right, he has the opportunity, as does Willie Duncan, to really cultivate programs to be responsive to our industries and our employers. So having them part of our business retention program is absolutely essential. Good point, David.
So are there any questions that people have? You can feel free to put them in the chat box or raise your hand. If not, I'll ask.
If there's no
David?
question, oh, go ahead.
David, this is Jeff Sakala. I've got a question if we have time.
Sure.
Hi, Sherri.
Jeff.
So I've heard anecdotally that in the Lake Tahoe area, when the pandemic hit, a lot of those homes that were being rented out, people had moved to the area and turned their second home into their primary home. Do you have any insight into how the economy and the rental market has changed in the Lake Tahoe area in the past year?
It's pretty much a crisis right now, Jeff. I don't need to tell you when tech took over Tahoe, because that's the thing. It right now has created a crisis for our local people who have been forced out of their rental homes or apartments. We have one employee, I will tell you, as an anecdote, that works up in our Tahoe CEO office, whose landlord came to her and said, she's a single gal, so, you know, doesn't have a large need for a large house, but came to her and said, I need to increase your rent by $700 a month, or you will need to leave. Like, no notice, mid-lease. And you know what? They can do that because that's what's happening. So this is not anecdotally, it's real. It's forcing our local workforce into trucks and cars and campers and Reno, and it's a crisis. Whether or not this hybrid resident, and that's really what we're calling them, because they're not a seasonal resident and they're not a permanent resident, but they are purchasing homes and living in them in teleworking, because that's what Bay Area tech has provided for them, whether or not this will be sustained, right? We'll know more going forward in the next year. It's created a housing crisis, absolutely, positively. There are 40, 50% increases in the real estate market up there. So for our local residents that work, not just in our hospitality sectors and for our ski resorts, but these are school teachers, nurses, our own staff. We have offices up there. We have health and human services departments, public works departments, planning and building departments. We cannot get people because they cannot afford, there's just nowhere to live. So Jeff, if you have solutions, please call upon Supervisors Holmes and Gustafson, because I've never seen, and I came from a resort community back east in Lake Placid, and I've never witnessed something like what's happened over the last 6-8 months in North Lake Tahoe.
Hey, if I can jump in real quick to piggyback on that. Hi, Sherri. Hey, so I actually, I had a question very similar in line to Jeff's question, but I want to take a step further. I mean, I've read about the housing crisis that you just described that's happening in Tahoe right now. But I'm curious if you're seeing how or what kind of effects that's having on the business community. Is it giving businesses difficulty in keeping a labor force around because those folks don't have a place to live potentially? And I mean, do you have any data on that or any insight on that?
We're starting to collect data from our downtown associations and the resort association. So our partners up there that are business organizations. But again, anecdotally, we're hearing restaurants closing for lunch on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because they just simply don't have enough staff for lunch. So they're having to prioritize, right? Well, weekends are busy, so the little staff that we have will just allocate them to the busy dinner hours. We have, I've had city managers call me, not quite as far as up the hill in Tahoe, begging, saying this is a mom and pop owned Subway restaurant or franchisee of a Domino's Pizza. They and their wife are the sole employees, and they cannot operate 7 days a week. So they're having to make decisions about closing down 2 days a week just so they get a break. I will say, and I'm interested in the data, and Vance, you and I should talk offline about that. If this phenomenon persists of this hybrid resident, this formerly Bay Area resident who's now taken up a permanent telework situation in North Lake Tahoe, if that persists, there could be a silver lining, right? Eventually, once the dust settles on the housing crisis, and I'm not sure how that dust settles, but if you take the housing discussion aside for a moment, this influx of this demographic didn't exist up there before. So now if you have this permanent residency of these tech folks, there's a very good opportunity for them to launch their own businesses. You know, maybe at some point they don't want to go back down to Google 3 days a week, and they're going to start their own gig. And now that's a very different entrepreneurial opportunity that we've never seen up in North Lake Tahoe. So long term, it could have some benefits that we could actually see some industry sectors grow up there that previously Tahoe is a tourism economy. There's very few other sub-economies that exist up there. So there could be an opportunity long term, but I'm not sure what the solution is for housing. We can't build it quick enough. That's what I will tell you. And people are living in their cars. It's terrifying.
Well, great. Sherri, thank you for that. And I know there are many other questions and certainly a lot of concerns about the workforce throughout the county. But at this point, again, thank you for that presentation. And I'd like to introduce our next speaker, which is Jeff Richardson. Jeff is the Senior Shopping Center Manager of the Westfield Galleria in Roseville. The Galleria is a 1.3 million square feet of regional shopping mall, generating over $500 million in sales annually. Prior to the Galleria, Jeff managed several other Westfield properties as an executive in training at the Westfield South Center in Seattle and the Westfield San Francisco. He also spent 1.5 years as the general manager at the Westfield Oak Ridge in San Jose. Before Westfield, Jeff was spent 22 years of his career at Macy's, with 9 of those as the vice president of Macy's at the Roseville Galleria. He led the store through 2 remodels and the rebuild following the 2010 fire, and was awarded the district award for VPGM of the year in 2012. Jeff's been a very active member of our community. He served as the president of the Roseville Area Chamber in 2019, currently serves as a committee member on the City of Roseville Economic Development Advisory Committee, and he's a board member for the following boards: Placer County Economic Development, Placer Valley Tourism, and At the Grounds. Jeff spent time serving on the Keaton Childhood Cancer Alliance board and is the past president of the Pacific Gold Aviation Society in Lincoln. On a personal level, Jeff and his wife Lana and have 3 kids and 5 grandchildren, all reside in Placer County. Jeff, I know you've got some interesting information to share with us. We're all very anxious to hear it.
Let me work on getting my screen shared here. Thank you, David. Okay, is my screen being shared? I'm assuming yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you guys for the introduction, David. And now soon to be 6 grandchildren, because my daughter's supposed to have one any day now. So I'm excited about that. Real quick, I'm saying that I'm showing the note version of the screen. Am I showing a full screen of the presentation, or?
Yes.
Okay, good. Unlike Sherri, I don't have an assistant to help me with this technical stuff, but I appreciate your patience with that. Well, it's been an interesting year in retail. I want to take you through kind of the managing of the COVID impact and kind of where we are now with the Galleria. The Galleria was shut down 3 times in 2020 for a total of 115 days closed. During the closure, we had an opportunity to really engage with our community by doing a high school auto parade on a ring road, excuse me, a mask pickup, which was sponsored by the Scott Alvarez Friends of Roseville, I think it was called. I may be getting the name wrong. And also toilet paper deliveries to the Gathering Inn. As you know, toilet paper was kind of a hot commodity during that time when we think back only a little year and a half ago. Westfield Galleria was the first mall to open in the state of California. We only opened with 68 inline retailers, but that first day was pretty incredible. We had over 20,000 people show up and had 3 media stations with over 100 media impressions. So it was a pretty big deal when we finally reopened for business. We actually managed through 9 color changes through the state of California's blueprint for safer economy: open, shut, mask, no mask, percentage people in. Very, very challenging times for running a large mall like this. But we got through it well. We implemented strong efforts in safety protocols during this time. We were awarded CSA Magazine #4 in the top 10 retail centers experience for reopening from COVID. So we got some national attention there. And we also hired the Bureau Veritas to certify us for safety certification, just to give our customers a little bit more comfort in knowing that they can that they are safe in coming to the store, the center. Here's some of the examples of the parade. It turned out, we just thought it was going to be a simple little parade, and turned out to be pretty exciting and monumental for these seniors that couldn't really graduate. We weren't doing ceremonies. So really got a collaboration between the city manager and his wife and the Roseville Police Department, Roseville Fire Department, and managed to pull off quite a spectacular parade around the Galleria, which has never been done in the history of the center. So it was kind of exciting. COVID reopen preparations, as I had mentioned earlier, took a lot. When we were closed, it took many hours where many people were working at home. Our full staff was here constantly because it's a moving, living center, preparing it, putting in distancing lines and changing all of our criteria so it could be safe for consumers to come back. Well, fast forward to now, how are we doing? State of the business now, current guidelines, we're fully open. Placer County is following the California state guidelines for the CDC. So we are only requiring masks for non-vaccinated customers. Obviously, we're not checking that, so they're just recommended. Some retailers are still requiring masks, especially with the new Delta variant climbing up, but not many. Interior, exterior play spaces are open. Dining and restaurants are all open to 100% capacity. All of the lines are gone in front of the retailers that many customers are being very patient with. And then all of our vending and restrooms are back up to full capacity. So it's almost as if we were at operating levels prior to COVID. Now, traffic. People have definitely voted with their presence. Galleria is leading the United States portfolio of URW, which is Westfield's parent company, in sales and footfall recovery. We've been the number one in traffic recovery, and we're measuring against 2019 numbers because that was our last stable year. 5 of the last 6 months are 2021. So we're just slightly off of 2019. As you can see the graph that I've got up on the screen now, the green line is 2021 numbers and the blue line is 2019. And in the month of July, we're very, very close. So I expect by the end of July, beginning of August, we'll start trending flat to 2019 numbers, which is pretty incredible considering if you look at the purple line where we were at in 2020, significantly lower traffic as you would expect. Another interesting phenomenon that happened is the Nordstroms never reopened at the Arden Fair Mall. They closed a large flagship center there, and that Nordstroms is larger than the Nordstroms here at the Galleria, and had quite a larger assortment of luxury and better items. So they decided not to open, seeing Galleria as their future. And it was an interesting impact on traffic. If you look at 2019, Arden Fair and the Galleria kind of competed pretty equally on traffic and market share. Then you fast forward to 2021 with Galleria being the blue line and Arden Fair being the red line. You can see the gap is drastically jumped. I don't want to blame that all on the Arden Fair Nordstrom's closing, but during the fact that when we opened up first in California, we actually had consumers as far south as Stockton, far north is Oregon, and even in from Nevada. So we've had customers come see the center that had never seen it before, and now have changed some of those traffic patterns and are revisiting Roseville. So I think it's a combination of both, really discovering what an asset we have here in Placer County and some trade shift from Arden Fair Mall. Sales is what's been most impressive. We're actually up to 2019 sales. Even though we're down in traffic, sales is up. We're 2% up to 2019 in total center and 5% up through May. And I think that jumped a little bit with our June sales that just came in our specialty. It's been a very productive customer. They come in, they buy, they get out. We've been leading the United States portfolio also in sales. We're the #1 performance in percent over 2019 sales in the entire United States Westfield portfolio, 5 of the last 6 months. So another really getting noticed, even though we're not in a urban large area, we are a suburban mall, one of only 2 in the Westfield portfolio, but we're performing better than any of the others, which is getting a lot of notice from the corporate office. Significant area of growth have been luxury. I mean, the luxury departments have just been out of control. And this is pretty much for the entire portfolio of Westfield. Luxury, jewelry, home, handbags, and footwear and athleisure have all been very strong categories, in some cases doubling 2019 numbers, which is just mind-blowing. People have a stockpile of money where they saved during COVID, not having to pay for dry cleaning and gas and all this, and they're purchasing things that they've never thought they would purchase before, and some of them even as investments. Some of the struggling retailers are clearly restaurants, beauty, retailers with heavy COVID restrictions. Some of them are still really restricting how many customers come in, or they're having difficulty getting product. That's the really two or three biggest reasons why those retailers are struggling. And just like Sherri said, and Jeff was talking to earlier, it's really about the employees too. We struggle. That's the #1 issue we have at the mall right now, is getting getting employees. I think we've had the biggest workforce of 16 and 17-year-olds in the history of them all being open, because 16 and 17-year-olds aren't getting unemployment checks. So it's really amazing. There's a great opportunity for younger kids to get a job. Galleria at Roseville had 111 retailers that met or exceeded June sales in 2019. That's huge. 86 retailers meeting or exceeding year-to-date sales versus 2019. And 49 retailers, we measure this on a moving annual sales, so it just keeps shifting each month. So you're actually capturing some of the 2020 closure. So 49 of those retailers are still beating 2019. Still beating moving annual sales versus a year from now. So they're definitely voting with their wallets. This last stat I'm talking about is not significantly changed, but it's kind of interesting. When you see a center like Galleria that's in a suburb mall, we have 107 retailers that rank in the top 10 volume with their stores in the United States of the URW portfolio, which is pretty impressive. We have 27 of those 107 that rank number 1. So the flagship of their stores within Westfield is sitting here, right here in Roseville. Pretty impressive. Excuse me. So now developments. We've got some exciting things happen. We did lose a few stores to COVID issues, whether it be the store's national bankruptcies or other issues, but we fared pretty well. As I just mentioned, we had 107 that rank in the top 10. So if they're closing stores, they're not choosing Roseville as the first ones to close. So we've bounced back pretty well. I think we have 4 vacancies in the entire mall right now. A lot of them have been filled by perm, but also temp. So we have temp stores that are occupying that space. But what I thought would be a problem is now a different problem. We're trying to see where can we fit people who want to come in to put them in the right space. The other good news is that the Century Theater construction, which halted during COVID, has re-begun. It's going to complete construction of a 1,500 seat, 14 screen theater in the first week of November of 2021, which is very exciting. This should be the largest movie theater in Roseville. And we're very excited that that is making some progress. So I got a little sneak peek pictures there for you of some of the renderings of what it would look like. There's a nice little nod to Roseville, if you can make it out on the screen. I'm not sure if you can. The center one, if you look really closely, it's an aerial view of the switching station at Roseville. So a little tip of the hat to our heritage there with our city starting with the train. And there's some actual construction. These were taken last week, so they've almost completed some of the surfaces on the outside. Those stadiums you're looking at is the largest one, which is quite an accomplishment, because there's a bowling alley below it and a theater above it, and neither one of them want to hear each other. So there was over $1.5 million spent just on the flooring alone to stop the noise suppression from going up and going down, which is pretty interesting. The other thing you may have noticed out on Roseville Park, corner of Roseville Parkway and Galleria Boulevard, where our 76 station used to be. They finally put up their signs, so now people can get their questions answered without calling me. And Amy's drive-through is being built. Pretty neat. This is the third one in existence. It's going to be a 4,000 square foot unique farm to table healthy food restaurant. I don't know if you've ever taken their frozen foods out of the grocery store, but this, you'll be able to sit down and dine and also go through a drive-through and get that healthy option right here at the Galleria. So that's expected to be completed around October of this year, just in time for the holiday rush. In retail delivery, moving inside the center, some pretty exciting store openings already. We opened Papaya and Travis Matthews, and a flip-flop shop reopened. The Travis Matthews is unique because we struggle with men's clothing at the Galleria. It's just, we're predominantly catered to women. The men's clothing doesn't always rank as high, but Travis Matthews is changing that complete. They're doing 3 times what they planned to do when they opened up and breaking all kinds of records. It's just a phenomenal build out and perfect for the Roseville guy, I think. The great casual wear, which is putting COVID and our already kind of demographics in Roseville together is just a formula for success. Here's some retail delivery that's going to happen. We're currently under construction for a Capital One Cafe. This is really fascinating, moving finance into the center. So you'll be able to do all of your banking while enjoying a cup of coffee or a little snack. With retail being so saturated with the online market and really lower footprints, you got to reinvent. You got to think of different ways other than retail to put into malls. So it's really about putting in separate mix of being office or bank or entertainment, and we're really heading down that road. Capital One's going to be a fantastic addition, and I think they're opening around. I don't think they're going to make clearly not making their June mark, but they should be open around August or September. And then, as you know, I announced, I think a while back, that Burberry did close. It's being replaced by YSL Saint Laurent. That is under construction currently and it'll be open in October. Fabletics is a pretty interesting retailer that we should be opening in the next month or two. And then Peloton has been very successful as a kiosk. They have done significantly better than they anticipated off of their kiosk that's been open for a few years now. So they're opening a full-on store, and that should be open just in time for Black Friday. And then marketing. We've been trying to really do some strong events to get consumers back. We've kind of dressed up our promenade, if you will. We did do some movies, drive-in movies when we were closed, and those were doing so well. We've moved them onto our promenade. So now we have Friday night movie night. Tonight is another showing. And then next week we have 2 showings, one on Thursday that's closed to the public. We're donating it to the Boys and Girls Club of Auburn, and Shake Shack is going to feed them all while they watch a great movie out there under the stars. And then it'll be open again for the public on Friday. So you can get your tickets at westfield.com. Doing a lot of job fairs, as I said earlier, it's the #1 issue. So we're conducting those weekly. A lot of retailers are offering bonuses and hiring on the spot just to get them in. Really want to build up that workforce. We're very concerned about fourth quarter. We generally hire about 40% more employees for the fourth quarter period. And some of the retailers are already having the same amount of openings that they have for fourth quarter. So it's really a concern, and want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support our retailers and getting those jobs hired up. We've done a lot with the Placer Arts Council partnerships this year. It's been very an interesting partnership. It's really our job to hide vacancies. We don't want the consumers or prospective retailers to see vacancies. It's not a good thing. So during the transition, when we did have a significant amount of vacancies, the Placer Arts Council really did a great job in merchandising in our windows of our vacant spaces. So customers would just assume that they're, display windows, but in actuality it was in a vacant store. And they actually sold a lot of their art and did very, very well. So we expanded upon that. And 2 weeks ago, we did kind of a maker's market where they all came out and they were doing art there in the mall. And we had, I think, 20 tables set up, and they just did phenomenal. They sold a bunch of art. The customers liked it. It was something different. So we'll probably continue to do those partnerships moving forward. They've been very, very good. But yeah, keep in tune for our great marketing thing. We're really getting back to events to try and get people to come into the mall and improve our traffic, which, as you saw the sales number, the more traffic we get, we'll just keep pushing those sales numbers higher. And that's really it. That's kind of the update for the mall. So if we have time, I can answer any questions you may have.
We may have time for one question.
Good. Looks like I was thorough, David.
Yeah, well, an amazing job. It's really exciting to see what's going on at the mall. And I've been over there a couple times and saw the art displays. It was great. And you're to be commended, your whole team. And I think it also talks to our county and our elected officials, because they went through the attestation. They got Placer County opened more than a lot of our surrounding counties. So we were able to take advantage earlier on. And the only other thing I think, Wendy, do you want to talk a little bit about anything going on in September?
Sure. So thank you for that. Just a reminder that Saturday, September 11th is the 25th annual Splash event. Sponsorships are available, which that will certainly guarantee your ticket to the event. But what I would like to share is that Amy's Drive-Thru Restaurant, although they won't be open yet in Roseville, will be participating at Splash. And the other, I know, and another double thumbs up for La Cantina at the Galleria is also participating. So we have a nice lineup of restaurants, breweries, and wineries. So I'm sponsor now. And thank you to PVT and At the Grounds for your sponsorship. We appreciate it. So happy Friday.
Thanks. Everybody have a great weekend.